If you haven't grabbed a plate already, you can do so at your leisure. Thank you all so very much for coming. This is our second of 4 scheduled forums that is being conducted through the DMC RED Committee, which is the Disproportionate Minority Contact and Racial and Ethnic Disparities. So really would like to just say thank you so much for coming. We have a wonderful group of individuals up front that I'm very pleased to say is joining us. And we'll give them a chance to say who they are. But from my left to right, County Attorney Don Klein, Mary Vicek, Director of Probation, Chris Rogers, Commissioner of Douglas County, and Deputy Chief Scott Gray from Omaha Police Department. So we'll give them a chance to do a greeting, and then we'll get the party started, get things rolling.
Good evening. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight and look forward to some dialogue about the different issues that we face in our community. I'm the county attorney. We have 60 lawyers in our office, staff of about 100 people. We deal with all the felonies in Douglas County. The only misdemeanors that we handle in the county attorney's office are domestic violence or vehicle homicide. So all the other misdemeanors, traffic cases, and other misdemeanors are handled by the city prosecutor's office. We handle all the felonies. And we also have the civil division that handles all the civil cases against the county. And then we have the juvenile division that has 16 lawyers in it. We handle all the delinquencies, termination of parental rights, abuse and neglect cases, and termination of parental rights. So I don't know, Mark, how much you want me to go into, just a little bit about that, or do you want me to go into anything else?
What do you have 2 minutes?
Okay. Well, that's probably enough. I look forward to questions that you might have. I have some other things to talk about with regard to specific issues that brought us together tonight. But I look forward to visiting with you about those.
My name is Mary Vicek. I'm the Chief Probation Officer for the Juvenile Office in Omaha. The Adult Office is separate. Our role is to be the gatekeepers for the youth center. So when children are presented to us by the police, we make the decision about whether they should be detained or not. We also do the investigations for the court when children do get farther into the court process. We're the ones that are gathering information, speaking to parents, schools, therapists, anybody that might be in that child's life, making a recommendation to the court and the legal parties to try and figure out what the next steps are. And then we supervise the children on probation. And we've got between 650 and 750 kids on probation in Douglas County at any given time. I am grateful to be here and also looking forward to questions and happy to clear up or explain or try and explain anything that you are concerned about.
Good evening, Chris Rogers, Chair of the County Board, and I guess I just want to lay out the County Board's kind of position in the criminal justice apparatus to some degree. As a basis, the County Board has some funding in the entire criminal justice system in the county except for the local police departments. Those local police departments are funded by the city, but the county in some sense has some funding invested in all of those to some degree. And the county's role is either we're directly involved or partnering with most of those criminal justice organizations there to try to solve the issues within the criminal justice system, and particularly into the juvenile justice system tonight. The county has jurisdiction over the Juvenile Detention Center, the Juvenile Assessment Center. We have some funding with juvenile probation between an agreement with the state and partnerships with others in that area. So, and I look forward to the questions tonight to try to clear up anything that may need to be needed. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Scott Gray, Deputy Chief with Omaha Police Department. Been with the department about 23 years. I'm over in uniform patrol, so that's anybody you see driving a black and white cruiser, wearing a uniform, that kind of thing. We have just under 500 police officers now across our 4 precincts. We're going to open a 5th one in September, in Elkhorn. And kind of my role, really, it's a big role with all kinds of criminal justice issues, but I do serve as part of the DMC committee in Douglas County. Myself, Mark, Chris, Ajmal back there are part of the Georgetown research team that went to Georgetown last fall, and we're working on a project related to juvenile justice reform now. And I think that's pretty much it for now. Chris and I started our day together, and now we're ending our day together. He's on the Douglas County Board of Health, and he asked me to join as kind of an ex officio member to assist with law enforcement issues on that side of things too. So I look forward to your questions and conversation.
Thank you very much. We also have some additional folks here. Janae Hancock with Operation Youth Success, Sean Coonfair, we got the Juvenile Assessment Center, and in the back, Alderman Bindon. He's DMC coordinator for Douglas County. All right, I'm going to introduce my co-chair, LaVon Stennis-Williams. We've been co-chair of the Disproportionate Minority Contact Committee for the past 4.5 years. And now, just recently, it's changed to DMC and RED. She'll give you some format information and some background information so we can get up to speed, and then we'll get together in some groups, and we'll get some additional information before we come back together.
There is water in that green cooler. I see people sitting at the table. It's a little hot in here. There's water. I am going to give you an overview of what DMC Red is. And pretty soon it will probably be changing from DMC. We'll be dropping that to just RED, which is Racial and Ethnic Diversity. We will learn a little bit about that and about DMC in general and its impact in Douglas County, Nebraska. And then we're going to hear from each of the panelists about their impact, what they're doing to help us eliminate DMC Red. So, okay, let's get going. The DMC committee is a committee of the it's the NEEKC, the Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative. I think Commissioner Rogers was the one who brought this initiative to Douglas County in response to a wave or pattern of arrest of young men of color back in 2012 or 2011. Well, the committee has now evolved into the DMC Red Committee, and there are several members here from that committee. Could you please stand? I see LaDonna, I see Greg, I see Yosef, Lavelle, okay. Those are the hardworking people along with Mark and I who help put these forms on and get things done. But primarily what the DMC committee is about, we will operate through a merged committee with Operation Youth Success, which is another reform initiative of Douglas County Juvenile Services or Juvenile Reform Initiative. But our main objective is to address the overrepresentation and the underrepresentation of youth of color in our judicial system as it impacts their success throughout the system. We want to also look at addressing the disparate treatment that youth of color receive, and we also look at the risk factors because we know that besides race and law enforcement, there are other factors that contribute to children being involved in juvenile justice system. So the DMC committee is responsible for addressing those 3 factors to help us eradicate DMC in Douglas County. It's co-chaired by myself and Mark and members, and we'll tell you tonight that our committee is open to any of you who want to join and help make a difference. So what is DMC Red? DMC stands for the Disproportionate Minority Contact, and RED stands for the Racial and Ethnic Diversity. Over the next couple of months, you'll see legislation coming down from Congress that will be eliminating the term DMC in the Juvenile Justice Delinquency Protection Act. There's one for a more inclusive term, Racial and Ethnic Diversity. So you'll probably see our name change as well to reflect the changes from the federal government to get rid of that pretty much restrictive term DMC and go for a more broader term, Racial and Ethnic Diversity, that we refer to as RED. What we know about DMC Red in Douglas County, we know that it exists in every single system point throughout the system. We know that it has existed since the beginning of time. There was a period of time in which youth of color were not even allowed to be a part of rehabilitative measures because they did not feel that could be rehabilitated. And some of that stigma, some of that perception have kind of trickled down over the years to bring about some of the bias that we have to address in our efforts to eradicate DMC and Red. There is not one single factor that causes DMC or racial and ethnic disparity. What we know is a combination of several factors. So no longer can we just blame law enforcement or racial bias. We realize there are other factors that contribute to this, and that tonight you'll learn about what those other 6 factors are. It impacts young persons' life outcomes. That's why it's important that we eliminate DMC and Red, because we do know that when a child experiences disproportionality or disparate treatment, it impacts their livelihood. It also undermines their access to fair justice. And so that is one of the things that drive us to help eradicate it. And only in the past 30 years has it even been taken seriously. Douglas County celebrated in October the 30th anniversary of the passage of legislation that raised or elevated DMC, and that's when it really became taken seriously throughout the country. And so this is what we know about DMC. So how do we know that it exists? We know it through stories, through anecdotal information, talking to parents, talking to families, looking at court systems, looking in the paper. All we have to do is look at the anecdotal information to know that there is disproportionality in our system. If we never got one data sheet, just going into a juvenile court, looking at the paper, watching the news, seeing the arrest, you would know that there's disproportionality in youth of color being involved in our system in proportion to their makeup in our community. But we also have data to show us. We know it through the minority people who are arrested. We know it through the number who have been detained, their average length of stay, and other factors that we use data to help support our notion or our belief that there's DMC based on anecdotal information. One of the things that we are really concerned about is the average length of stay, or how long a youth stay in the juvenile justice system, because we know in Douglas County, in proportion to their makeup, minority youth are 5 to 6 times likely to stay longer in the system than a similar situated white youth. So let's look at it by the numbers. We have put together what we refer to as a DMC funnel, which shows how kids are funneled into the system. So we look at the African American youth. They make up 13% of the population. But yet in this funnel, they make up 42% of law enforcement contact. They make up 33% of youth who are presented to probation, and they make up 47% of the youth detained. If you look at the Latino youth, which makes up 18%, you'll see their disproportionality as well. It's not as bad as the youth of color, the African American youth, but it's just as bad in terms of that youth being receiving disparate treatment. We also know by zip code. We know that there are 3 zip codes where the majority of the arrests take place, and they're in high poverty, high crime communities, and they're communities of color. The zip codes are 68134, 68104, 68111, and 68107. These zip codes make up the highest percentage of our youth arrests. And so we know that we have DMC, we will just look at it by zip code. Some people call it jurisdictional or racism by geography. So what is our core understanding? We know for a fact that racism and bias intersects all of our risk factors. We know that there is institutional and overt racism and biases in terms of minority youth being included or overly excluded from our system to rehabilitate. We have implicit bias. We know that race and ethnicity is subject to youth to disparate treatment. And we also know that, and we'll hear tonight, hopefully from the police, that there's a belief that kids are being targeted based on their last name. If a family member was involved in the system, that youth is more likely to be targeted. So that impacts that youth's encounter with the law enforcement and more than likely impact their involvement. And so we know that there are these issues that also impact a youth's involvement. And then we know that minority youth of color, are looked at less childlike. So when a youth of color commits a crime, oftentimes they're looked upon as being adults and being more culpable. So those are the ways in which we know that racism and bias intersects all the other factors that impact a minority involvement in DMC. So some of you maybe want to know what implicit bias is. In a nutshell, all it means is that implicit bias impacts and fuels DMC when individuals who have bias against racial and ethnic groups are placed in a position with wide discretionary authority to make decisions. And we know that's true. We know that there is sometimes people who have the decisions or the authority to make decisions are the ones who are impacting the lives of minority youth. And that's why it's important to include diversity, to make sure that people have the proper training, because implicit bias, more than racism, is what fuels the involvement of youth in our system. Implicit bias cuts across racial lines. So there can be what's referred to as intra-race implicit bias, where people of color are committing bias against people of color based on their own perception or their own feeling about certain people. Usually it's because that person may be the same race or ethnicity of them, but they may be a poor person, or they may be a person who lives in a high poverty, high crime community. And then we know the DMC factors go beyond race and bias, because we know that poverty, lower quality school system, all these things that from the board impacts a child's involvement in the system. If a kid is not going to have access to a stable house or a lower quality school system, we know those are factors that will impact that child's involvement in the system. Now, in 2017, we as a DMC committee looked for other factors besides race and bias, because we knew that could not be the only two factors that were driving it. We came across research that was done by Dr. Kakar that has since been adopted by the Office of Juvenile Justice Delinquency. And there are 7 factors that we know besides race and bias. We have the system factors, and we addressed that in our first forum. We have social factors that we'll be addressing later on in the forum. We have family factors, education factors, and individual factors, meaning that youth involvement, and then we have economic. So all of these factors, besides race and bias, contribute to DMC and RED. And that's why it's important for us to go beyond just race and bias, because we knew that that alone was not the only factors that was contributing to it. Tonight we're going to look at family, and we're going to look at individual, and then we're going to touch upon, since we have the panel people here, we're going to touch upon system factors briefly as their involvement as a foundation. So in Forum 1, if you missed it, what we talked about was the different things we know from the system, and those are the things that we pulled out from the community people that was present, as well as the report, as factors that are involved, youth being involved from a system standpoint. These are just things that the system, we believe, can control if we want to lower the numbers of minority youth in the system. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to the panel to talk about what they are doing in their respective departments to help eradicate DMC. And we'll start by having Don Klein from the County Attorney's Office address it.
Thank you. You know, some of the things, I saw some of the questions that came up before from the summary Dr. Carr had made about some questions that folks had. And I just wrote myself some notes about that. And one of the things, first of all, we're involved in, and we are participating in implicit bias training. Courtney Weirsinger, who's an African-American lawyer that's in my office, is putting a program together. So we'll have trained the whole office with regard to implicit bias. One of the things, and we're always open to suggestions from anyone in that regard. I don't know if you've ever been down to my office. I make every effort I can to have our office reflect the community with regard to diversity. And if you're in any part of our office, whether it's the lawyers, support staff, victim witness unit, you'll see a diverse office. I think that's important also. But one of the things that people brought up was about something about diversion, and that we needed more diversion. But one of the things I think that people don't really even know what we do or the diversion programs that we have. I looked at our statistics that with regard to diversion or people we try to keep out of the system, and from the statistics I have, July 1st, 2018, it's fiscal year, to June 30th of 2018, or 19, we'll have, or I guess it's 17 to 18. I think we referred over 1,334 cases to diversion from the juvenile court system. About approximately 1,336 of those were cases that were referred to, I think Sean's here, to the Juvenile Assessment Center. And out of that, 740 were placed on diversion. With regard to the truancy issue, we had quite a few referrals from the schools, 1,294, and 330 of those folks were diversion eligible. We have other programs also that we allow juveniles to be a part of. So it's quite a large number of people that we divert from the system. We don't put it into the system, even the juvenile court system, as far as diversion. And then, even though we're talking here tonight about juveniles, I'd like to talk a little bit about adults. We've really made an effort, I think, to be, I'm on the National Board of Directors for the NDA, National District Attorney Association. And I think we're ahead of the curve in Douglas County with regard to how we handle our problem-solving courts and diversion for adults also. Right now, we've developed, clear back in 1996, when I was the Chief Deputy County Attorney of Drug Court. And it's a model for all the drug courts in the Midwest. We're coming and how we do business. We did it early on before anybody talked about those kinds of things very much nationally. Right now we have 125 people in drug court. Those are people that won't be in the system. Okay? We have a young adult court which we started because it's for people who can't qualify for juvenile court. They're aged out of juvenile court. So our age limit's like 25 years of age in young adult court. So I wanted a place where we could put young people who can't go to juvenile court because they're aged out, but still I think should have an opportunity not to be convicted of a felony. Currently we're at 35 people in young adult court, which is 5 more than we're supposed to be allowed with the resources that the region can provide to help us with that. Mental health diversion, as adults we have 57 people right now in mental health diversion. I started a veterans court, people who have served our country, to allow them possibly to be diverted. We have 30 people in our veterans court. And then I have a regular diversion program for people who are nonviolent offenses, maybe possessory offenses. I need to give you the breakdown of the different types of crimes that we have in the diversion system. But we have 65 people in diversion. So that's 312 people that aren't even entering the criminal justice system, that we're giving an opportunity to, even though they've been arrested, they've been booked on a felony, where we allowed them to enter this pretrial sort of system to keep them out of the system. And I think that's very important, and I think it affects RED and the DMC issue also. So we're doing everything we can to keep people from getting into the system, but I think we need to do more. And we're open to that in any way that we can, looking at how we can do that better. I'm a firm believer in a lot of the issues that Yvonne had just placed up there, the 7 criteria that for disproportionate minority contacting. I'm a big believer in education, and that if we can keep young people in school any way that we can, we're going to keep them out of the criminal justice system. So we've really made a lot of efforts with regard to young people who work very hard with the schools, all the schools, and trying to do what we can to provide that, not to get people in trouble. You know, it's not to charge somebody with a crime if they're not going to school. Truancy is not a delinquency type situation in juvenile court. It's a status offense. And what that means is we're just trying to figure out, okay, what's the problem here? Why is this young person not in school? Why are they not attending school? What services do we need to offer this family to make sure that this young person is able to get to school? Sometimes it's as simple as the bus route is close enough to their house and they don't have transportation. Sometimes it's this young person, both mom and dad work in the home that they live in, and the young person needs to take care of some siblings. So we try and figure out what services can we provide to this family to keep this young person in school. Because I think that's such an important factor to keep young people out of the criminal justice system. So there's so many factors that we look at in order to do what we can to lower the population in the juvenile justice center for everybody. The least amount of kids that we can have in juvenile detention is the best situation. And in that regard, Chris Rogers, Levon, there's so many people that are working so hard to put together programs, because one of the things that we hear from juvenile court judges is we don't have a place to put this young person. So they are in detention for too long. And we have a gap with regard to mental health services and so many other services that we need to provide. There's a lot of work being done right now to be able to provide those kinds of services to families and the youth that need them to keep them out of detention, because we know detention is not the answer. It isn't the answer. And I think there's been some misnomers, there's some things that have been said about calling a youth center or detention a jail. It's not a jail. No one gets sentenced to time at a youth detention facility. It's a holding facility until we can place that child where they need to be placed so that the court can do that. So that's the important thing people need to understand. There's not the detention center, when we talk about particularly juveniles, is not a place where people are doing some kind of time or some punishment situation. It's simply a place to have security for that person until we can find a place to place them. There's so many other things I can talk about, but I don't want to take everybody else's time, so I'll pass it on to Mary.
Thank you, Don.
Similar to what Don has articulated, we also try very hard to hire people in our office who look like the people we serve. In 2012, when there was a funding shift, we tripled the size of our staff, which meant that we could reduce the size of our caseloads. We are still working on that issue, but that's a big piece. The research shows that one of the huge keys to success for kids on probation is the relationship they have with the probation officer. So the more we can do to lower the size of those caseloads and have kids on probation with people that they can relate to, the better we're all going to be. In juvenile court, it's a rehabilitative court where we're working with the parents or the legal guardians, if it's grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, whoever is shepherding that child through their life. So we're bringing in whoever we can to support the success of that child. And if there's something that's happened with their parent, then we're going to try and identify the next best person to support that child's success in their natural community. We try very hard to keep kids at home or with their families or in the least restrictive environment. A, we're required to do that by statute. And B, we know that, again, children succeed better when they are involved with the people in their life who are going to be there for them. So we don't want to remove them from that environment if we do not have to. Juvenile probation has also had quite a bit of training. We participated in the implicit bias training. Judge Wadey Thomas, that used to be on the bench with us, did that for us for several years. We have added the inclusive communities training that UNO does. So all probation officers have that, and anything else that we can find. We started 2 years ago in-home services with families, so families who are willing to participate and try and make things better at home and are open to having a therapist or a support worker in their home to advise them in regards to their teenager. That parenting teenagers is hard for anybody. And then when you throw in other factors, such as Levon has mentioned, it's sometimes 5 or 6 times as hard. So when we have the right person in the home that's trying to support the parents or the grandparents, who's working with the teacher, who's advocating for a child who maybe needs help with their IEP at school or who needs help with transportation, all of those pieces where we can get a closer eye and try and meet people where they're at. I noticed on the slide it says inadequate access to legal representation. In Douglas County, every child in juvenile court has either their own attorney or a court-appointed attorney. So I think our state has done a good job of that. We don't have that in every single small town in Nebraska, but it's something the legislature keeps moving towards. So we have addressed that issue. I think that was 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. So they all have lawyers. We have revamped all of our assessment tools, including the one that we use to screen kids in. That has been looked at. We had national experts come in from cities who had already been working on DMC issues to look at our screening tool for the youth center. We made some changes to that. We also have a screening tool that we use to assess risk to reoffend. We had that validated and had researchers come in and tell us if we were doing the tool the right way, and if there were other things we needed to do to look at racial bias or training our staff to make sure that they were doing the tool the right way. They were pretty complimentary in terms of acknowledging the fact that they think we're doing a pretty good job with that. We came out 98.3% correct, I guess, is the best I can explain it. I'm not a stats person, but we were doing a good job with that. But we're always looking at those pieces and trying to bring in people who are doing a good job with this in other communities to help us get better. We also partner all the time with all of the agencies in Omaha. We use 7 different reporting centers, day reporting and evening reporting centers in Omaha. They are all in North Omaha. We have worked with all of them to expand their services. When we call and we say, hey, we need this, they're adding it. We have also had some meetings with Omaha Public Schools to try and educate ourselves in a better way to address the needs of children. We see a lot of kids, as Mark will tell you and anybody else who works in the system, a lot of children who come into our system who have challenges with learning disabilities, who have an individualized education plan. Sometimes those things are implemented in grade school and then they come to us when they're 15 and all of a sudden it's not there. And the parents need help advocating to get that IEP back in place so their child will succeed. We work closely with the Nebraska Family Support Network to have advocates for parents in the system. So the people who work for that agency are people who have had children in the juvenile justice system, and we can ask them to partner with a parent who is willing to or wants to have that kind of support. We have lists and lists of things we're trying to do better. We are always open to suggestions about things we can do better. And absolutely always trying to educate ourselves and move so we can get more kids out of the system and back at home faster.
So, quickly, so I give you the dynamic of county government, because you need to understand this to go. The city of Omaha has mayor format council. They're on peer stages, 2 branches, executive, legislative branch. The mayor appoints all of those directors to some degree, and there's a lot of, outside of the council with the mayor, a lot of direct control on how things flow. County government, you got 7 elected commissioners, I think 9 row officers, and we set the budget. We give the row officers the budget. We can't tell them how to spend their budget, but they have to come to us to get approved to spend their budget. And Mary technically lines up with the state. Even though we provide some money for her budget, she gets a lot of her orders from the court. So I say that to you to say, from the county's perspective, the county's role in this is a lot of cultivating, facilitating, partnering, trying to steer and ask people to get to certain places. There's some leverage, but most of it is a partnership to get there. So I just say that to say all of this is done in joint effort. It's not really a hard kind of say, this is my way, this is how you do it, even though we would like that as a board. But it operates in a really partnership way. I say that to say, Mary mentioned Wady Thomas. Wady Thomas, I think, is the father of DMC in the county to some degree, as far as my knowledge. Wady brought that in, and from my tenure there, we got involved in putting our juvenile justice plan together. DMC has been an imprint in there ever since. When we became a JDOT site, it rose up in importance, and I give credit to the DMC committee in its latest days for putting the strong political will behind that to open up the space to allow the board to work DMC-wise. Recently, about 2 years ago, the state of Nebraska was part of a Title II grant from the Fed, and they decided not to continue that grant for a lot of reasons. And I do believe one of those reasons is because of some of the difficulty in getting the DMC numbers. The board was encouraged by the DMC committee locally to apply for the Fed grant. We got that grant, and one of the actions we did was brought on a DMC coordinator. And the board's commitment to that is to have that position there well beyond the grant. But one of the things that coordinator is working on after a year, we hope this year to start instituting some training throughout the county to kind of lift this up awareness-wise. But also, we're in the process now trying to evaluate some proposals to have a study done as part of the DMC grant, trying to really evaluate the system and know where we need to go point blank to try to target some of the DMC efforts. Now, those are some of the immediate things we're doing to some degree, but I want to point out two things for you to watch. And I'm going to be curious over the next year and actively a part of it, but watching to see how these affect some of the DMC numbers. Now, we became a JDOT site in 2019. JDOT is a juvenile detention alternative initiative by Andy Casey. Big part of that is data-driven efforts. When we went there, and we had high numbers in the 2s, 160s, 140s, the numbers started coming down, and the easier cases to deal with, we were able to get out. The glowing sore thumb that stuck out in that door when the numbers started coming down is the DMC red issue. There's a law that's going to come into effect. I forgot the statute number, but it's referred to affectionately as LB 1112, LB 670. That law is going to go into effect here in about 2 weeks. And as Don Mary pointed out, juvenile is different than adult. I think our number today was 75. I think it's safe to say that any time in that facility, 15 to 20% of those kids really need to be there, meaning those kids are there on adult charges. So that means, it's at a point in time, 50 or so kids can really be out. When this law passes July 1, those kids technically can't be in the youth center. And so that's why you've heard a lot of discussion talking about programming ramping up now. I think how that works is, if that kid comes in on June 30th, the system still is going to be able to work that kid through. But after July 1, technically that kid can't be placed there. So realistically, I think it'll take us a couple of months or so to really flow everything through, get everything together. But you should watch out for once July 1 hits, what the effects of the DMC numbers happen there. My hope is that there's an effect there just by being able to go to the services, but hopefully with the disproportionate number, that should reduce some of that down to some degree of kids of color that there. The second piece, and as I mentioned at the beginning, in the partnership and how things work together is, I'm curious to see, and you should watch out for, what happens with OPS when the full school year implements and they have a chance to flow through this new system they got with truancy. Dr. Logan has been put in, if you got a kid in school, you've probably seen this on every newsletter that's come out, everything that's there, Strive for 95. And the Strive for 95 effort is supposed to be meant to have, for years the district has had a good number when it comes to truancy, but that's been this cumulative number everywhere. I think the effort that she is specifically trying to get at is every school have 95% attendance. When that happens, I think some of the issues earlier up front that are bringing those kids here for us to deal with, hopefully get addressed, and the opportunity then comes for funding to be addressed so we don't have to deal with them and they don't have to sit there. LeVon made the point there about the 7 factors of DMC. The interesting thing about the 7 factors of DMC is the 7 factors of DMC line up perfectly with the social determinants of health. And anybody that may be familiar with health, you know, the concept is that only 20% of healthcare deals with you going to the hospital, getting treated or injury. The other 80% that really drives it is where you live, what your health is, what you eat, and other things of that sort. When this Strive 95 kicks in and some of this stuff gets identified early, I think the core of all of this you're going to see drives with power. And I honestly feel there's a lot of kids that sit in that center now that, you know, for circumstances, can't get some of the health treatment that they need. You have to depend on the government to come through, and you have to get yourself in the system to be able to access it. I think you should look out for it. I'd be interested to see once the school district is able to identify some of these kids that miss regularly, if we can get at some of the family issues that make that happen. So with that said, those are some of the things we're doing. Those are some of the things that you should look out for, and I think that will tie with what we're doing, and then we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Chris.
Well, most of the modern research in this field in relationship to law enforcement focuses on intervention and prevention as the best way for law enforcement to address this issue. So we do quite a few things in those fields. Obviously, we have gang intervention specialists. We have one north, one south. We just hired a female gang intervention specialist, and we are working on hiring a refugee community gang intervention specialist. And they do a lot of work with at-risk kids, trying to keep them from becoming either system involved at all or deeper involved in the system, getting resources for them and their families and that kind of thing. So that's one aspect of it. We have a lot of community and police programs, like we have a relationship with PACE, Police Athletics and Community Engagement. There's thousands of kids that participate in that. Operation Nets, where our officers go out and give kids basketballs and footballs, put up nets and hoops in their neighborhoods, and just kind of form relationships and try to get them involved in healthy activities. And there's really quite a few other programs that we can talk about a little bit later that we get into to try to keep those kids out of trouble. One that I'm involved in just a little bit in a different way is I'm on the board at the Hope Center as well. So we try to get kids steered into Village Basketball Alliance, especially during the winter months. They tend to take in quite a few kids that are particularly at risk, and some of them are actively involved in gang life. So we try to get them involved in positive activities off the street in the evenings, things like that. We do, for our officers, first I should say, we are striving to get our composition of our agency in line with the demographic makeup of the community. So our last 2 recruit classes have been heavily minority, and we're getting closer to those numbers, those matches, but we're not quite there yet, and we'll keep doing that. We have a lot of competition with the corporate world for qualified candidates, and sometimes it's hard to attract minority candidates to a law enforcement field, but we're keeping our efforts up there. And in fact, we just took in 2 interns from the Step Up program. They're doing a 7-week rotation through most of the units in the police department. Better get them acclimated to the different jobs and opportunities that are available in law enforcement. But our officers, as far as their training, they receive implicit bias training in the academy. We do have in-service training related to that. We work on bias-based policing. We do crisis intervention training. We have about 30% of our officers are crisis intervention trained, which is above the national average. A pretty robust program. We have Policing the Teen Brain, which is another kind of offshoot of crisis intervention training. We have a threat assessment team that is kind of a multi-jurisdictional group that looks at kind of a variety of different threats. It's more geared towards school-based threats, but they do examine any kind of threatening behavior, and we try to get kids help through that as well. Again, all these programs the goal is to get these kids help early before problems get worse and worse and worse, and try to prevent them from ending up in the youth center or Carney or wherever else the case might be. There's probably some more, but I know we want to keep moving on with the questions and the roundtables and stuff. So we'll talk some more about the different things.
Okay, so you've heard from our panel, and you're going to get a chance to have the next hour of this forum tonight. We're going to give 30 minutes to allow you to have a question and answer with the panel, and ask them any questions that you have about the issues that you feel are contributing to DMC, or you've heard what they said. They've acknowledged some things that they realize they have to work on in their departments. And so please ask them how you feel, or give them your suggestions. The second half hour, we're not there yet. The second half hour, we're going to have you guys go into a roundtable and give us some suggestions of what you think is causing DMC and what you think are strategies that will reduce it. But before we do that, I want to show you a video of a different point of view of what a leading child expert talks about why she feels there's so many youth of color involved in our system.
That black relationships have survived as they have. What say you about that 400 years later?
It is amazing that black relationships have lasted for 400 years. They lasted this morning. They're also going to last tonight, and you may not even know the person to whom you will have the relationship with. But they do tend to go over. Relationships do go over like that. And as we move into what has happened to this, I know that our relationships sometimes really reach a low air. That's one of the reasons why we wrote the book, How to Find and Keep a BMW, a black man working. There was parallel in there. This is very serious. There's relationships. Our relationships didn't start yesterday or last week. It also started 400 years ago when those 19 persons were here. And I want you to remember something very important, and one about by any means necessary, Howard Brooks told us, and that was Malcolm X. He said, if we can only remember that you didn't land at Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on you. And it's very essential that we kind of keep this in place. And knowing that these are the things that happen, then we have to move more to change it. See, we have a system that would not like to see black males and black females together. They would not like to see that happening at all. Because once we come together, they understand the power of the strength of the black woman, the queen of the universe. They know that, her strength. They also know the power of the black male, the warrior. If you would turn him loose, he will protect also his family and things that need to be done. And because they understand that if our relationships are together, then they will lose. But if our relationships are torn up, then we can forever be treated in certain ways by the oppressors. That's why they gave us something called integration, which is nothing but the illusion of inclusion. They gave us this. They actually gave a statement. And when they gave that statement, it meant that they could go right into your homes. They went into the black homes now, the powers that be, and told us that you cannot discipline your children anymore. And if you discipline your children, you will go was amazing that, you know, the black parents who in Africa, that was out of the question. Some social worker come in there saying you can't discipline your children, the social worker would disappear. As you all know, this kind of thing would go on. You would be sitting in a place like this and all you had to do was act up and do something wrong and all your mother had to do was to glance in your direction. Y'all remember that? And you remember that the glance meant don't let me have to get up and come over there. And every once in a while in the black family there was a fool who would challenge the glance. And if you could get home over the foot, over the ironing cord, over whatever, you were sent to the backyard to get something off the peach tree. And if you brought something in that was too short, God forbid that you would do something like that. But then it got so terrible, it frightening us. This is why we got to take this back, and this is the best part of our action plan, is to reclaim the minds of our children. Because then they went into the public schools and took discipline out there. So when we acted up in there, they put our boys, our black men, into some kind of special ed classes. Those special ed classes are nothing but holding cells until they go to the state prison. This is what they did. And then, the one thing that they knew, that if we can put them in prison, if we can have them convicted for a felony, then once they get out of prison, they cannot get a job because of that. They cannot get the job. And then if they happen to eke out and find a job, then they have to pay taxes on the job, yet they cannot vote. And I call that taxation without representation. That's what we're looking at. And if one of the things that we would learn to do, they did a grand thing when they took that discipline away from us, because when they made our parents afraid to discipline the children, then what happened? We found out that the teachers were afraid of the principals were scared of the superintendents was scared of the school board was scared of the parents were scared of the children, and the children ain't scared of nobody.
A different perspective of how people are saying their problem is that we just don't have control of our ability to parent our kids for a lot of factors. But at this point now, we're at that point where we want to give you all the opportunity to talk with our panelists. They'll be with they'll be with us until 7:30 tonight. And so, based on what they've said, based on what you've seen here, and based on your own experiences, Mark will walk around with the microphone to allow you to ask any questions of our panel. We need 2 microphones.
Well, this is supposed to be.
Gordon, can you make this work?
Gordon. Call him Gordon. Okay, in some cases, it may be a question that you're referring to, and in some cases, it may be a situation that you can refer to. But raise your hand and I'll get to
We're
you.
the parents and the community
Who's first?
first, and then we're going to the system folks.
Hand that to this brother.
So, Mr. Khan, are you still captain? Chief. You chief now? What? Deputy chief. Okay.
Good to see you.
Likewise. So, I haven't been here the whole time, so if I'm out of step with what I'm going to talk about, please correct me. I don't have a problem with that. But, you talked about the truancy issue. The truancy issue is not really the issue, because the school suspension numbers and expulsion numbers reflect the similar demographics within the juvenile system and within the prisons. So the school to prison pipeline is very alive. And if I'm wrong about that, again, correct me. OPS knows that black students are 56% of all the suspensions, even though they make up 24% of the population. I work with the Malcolm X Foundation. We have an initiative called the Justice for Kids initiative that deals with that specifically. So a couple of weeks back, I actually went to Jim Kavanaugh's conversation. He was talking about the building of the new facility. And Mr. Klein was there, and he talked about there's an increase in guns and drug cases that are showing up among juveniles. Is that still correct?
I wasn't there at that meeting, somebody else might have been.
Somebody else representing the prosecutor's office was there. I don't know if it was you, they said the prosecutor's office, but Riley was there. Public defender, oh, sorry about that. Riley was there. Klein, prosecutor, Riley, defender, got it. But he talked about, I'm getting to that, but it has to be in context so they understand exactly where I'm coming from. So, in this context, if we know the school to prison pipeline exists in Omaha, Nebraska, the question is, what is the police force doing, not only about disproportionate minority content, but about the investigative practices of the police force specifically? Because children are being asked, just like adults are being asked, to tell on individuals in their peer group about what they might have or have seen, and possibly being told that they can get off on their case if they turn in a friend, which increases the amount of juveniles that go into the system. So it's not necessarily about individuals that run into police when they're suspended from, when they are truant from school. They get suspended from school first. They're on the street. They get stopped by a police officer, and then that police officer says, "Well, since you're not in school, I'm going to lock you up. But if you can tell me where the guns and drugs are, then we'll go ahead and let you go home, and you won't have a case." So I want to know what the department is actually doing about these tactics that investigators are using to meet their quota or whatever the heck they're doing. But on the streets, the word's coming back to me, and it's something that we got to deal with.
That's you, Scott.
Well, I'll do my best. Well, first of all, there was I kind of explained to the group before you got here, I'm part of a Georgetown research group with Commissioner Rogers and some others. There was a group before ours that looked at school-based arrest and instituted some changes in OPS as far as that's concerned, and it resulted in an over 50% reduction in school-based arrests since that was 3 years ago. So those numbers have gone down quite a bit. And I don't specifically know where you get your information about the truancy, because we don't have people out looking for kids that are truant.
Not truancy, I'm talking about suspensions and expulsions, and that information comes directly from OPS. That's nothing that, there was an article published about it in the Reader in February, so it's clearly recorded data. It's not something that I'm making up.
Well, I'm not saying you're making it up. I'm not familiar with what you're referring to.
The suspensions and expulsion rate in OPS is higher than every other demographic group among black children in Omaha Public School District, and it's disciplinary. Those disciplinary actions end up becoming criminal infractions. Those criminal infractions get compounded when police officers are saying, "Help us with our investigation," if you tell on your friend, and then that even compounds more with the number of students that are black that end up incarcerated.
Right. Well, I guess I can't answer that specifically, just because I don't know. I don't know of cases that start as school discipline and then become criminal. There's certainly criminal incidents that occurs in schools, and we have to make arrests on that. But we made pretty clear to the school systems 3 years ago when they did that project that we weren't going to be their disciplinarians anymore. So we've really tried to get out of that business and just take on more of a security role in the schools. And those officers aren't there we want them to be there to make more positive relationships with the kids and get a little bit more involved that way. I don't know what the answer is as far as if they're talking to officers or prosecutors and making deals on criminal charges. I can't say that doesn't happen, but I just don't know the frequency with what that happens.
So, Leo, when I brought in the school system, I didn't really tie that together because that's the whole other thing tonight, but it's a track. But to your point about it, now let them answer it, I'm gonna just point out that I don't know if there's a clear path to that track you just laid out, because I know that we partner with OPS on a position in the county attorney's office where the county pays half and they pay half, to where that person kind of plays, for lack of a better term, cop, traffic cop. And basically, the school system can't just send us kids that they haven't gone through the exhaustive path. So there's just not a clear cut line where that kid can make it. If there is some other intervention that they need to do there, that person says, no, you need to do some more work, and before you send that up to us. And so the kid would have to have did something to really get in it, because that person serves as a traffic cop. That's my knowledge.
I would say I agree with you with regard to, and that's what I said earlier about if young people aren't in school, then the likelihood is that they may end up in the criminal justice. And my goal is to keep kids in school, not to have them suspended, not to have them go to an alternative school, those kinds of things. I think that's, and I've met with Dr. Logan a couple of times, and we've talked about that specific issue about trying to maintain young people in school so they're getting an education rather than getting themselves in trouble. So I think that's very important. And I know there's a lot of work that's being done by the OPS right now and trying, like I said, to strive for 95 is their goal and process. And I'm always working very hard to do that. So.
Thank you. Is there a parent?
I'm a single mom, and I live in Millard. We grew up in South Omaha. I've been kind of struggling with my son. He had truancy, went to Boy Scouts, did great, A's and B's. Got kicked out of there for wandering off and not, I mean, if you get put in a home with a family that you don't really know, kids get stressed out too, so they just want to need time for themselves. So Boys Town, got kicked out after the meetings. Finally got to come home. He's been struggling in school. Again, truancy comes back up. Aggressive behavior. Call the police. They can't detain him because he's a minor. Destroying all my stuff. Call again. They just come over. We can't do anything now. So you just let him come over, stay home, and just continue to break my stuff. They said if he was so if he goes to a neighbor's house and goes there and destroys their things, they still can't do anything about it. So my son's actually just been displaying a lot of mental illness things lately, and so sorry. Been having a lot of mental illness going on, psychotic episodes and stuff. So I would say this one being able to keep him for the weekend and send him home. Do the same thing, same kind of episodes. 3 weeks, I had to wait for my son to get help. Calling the cops continuously, seeing what I can do, going to the hospital, sitting in the hospital for 9 to 12 hours, not knowing, can you please help me? I called CPS, I called CPS on myself, I called the Nebraska hotline, I called Lutheran Family Services, I called all these people to find my son help. And finally, they took him in finally. But I also had to press charges on him, just so I could get him detained. I went down and talked to Zach Carlson, which was not county, and they had got the court date for him. From the 16th, I said, can you please get it closer so that my son can get some help? So we left Emmanuel, went there, they put an ankle monitor, sent him home, put the ankle brace on, sent him home, cut it off. It was a weekend. Took him in, got another one, brought him home. Couldn't really do anything about it. So he ended up going to school that Monday. They picked him up. He went to DCYC. He was there for a month. They said, we think it's making his symptoms worse. So then they were like, okay, we have court Friday, we're canceling, we're going to go next week. So it's we continue to keep him there. And like you said, it was a holding facility until they could find somewhere for him to go, because my son was sleeping outside because he was having issues in his mind, thinking something was going on in the hospital. Where's the help for my son though? That's my question, like the mental health, like, and Mark told me about this. Mark see my son, and I'm just like, I'm lost right now. They just took him to the hospital today. So he's back in the hospital, so I'm
We've
just
been
like,
asking for help for
3 months. So I just don't know what to do anymore. And they had to take him out of DCYC because he was found competent of the charges because of his mental health. So they took him out and said, well, where do you put him? I said, put him with his dad. Well, they said, no, we don't know if he can do well over there because they have siblings. So they put him in a foster home for 3 days. The person there was like, no, this ain't gonna work. So they took him out of there. And then they took him to his dad. All he did was call me. They also made my son a ward of the state too. They made him ward of the state because I'm like asking for help. What else do I do? So this is where we are today. They took him out of his dad's, and now he's back in the manual. So where do we go from here? And that's why I'm here today, because Mark will come here, and I need some answers. I don't know what else to do. And that's really all I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to be strong for my son, and it's really tough. So I just don't know what else to do.
So, I don't have immediate answers, and that's unfortunate. But that's, I think half the battle all of us been going over here for a year to try to set the stage to get there. You see probably 4 points in the system here. There's some other points that aren't. At least locally, long term, the point is there's plans in the works now to try to get an 18 to 20 bed mental health facility. I know, but there's one in plans now to be built. It's not gonna unfortunately help your situation immediately. I think it's fair to say, and some people correct me if I'm wrong on that. There's a partnership that comes in play with the state on that. And the issue is that, and like I said, I don't have an answer, but the issue is that we as a state are in deficit of mental health capacity.
But one thing, why would Boys Town, like my son did great there, why would they keep denying him? Why would you keep denying a child that did so well there? Yes, he did, have some issues and he got kicked out, but I think kids deserve a second chance. I just don't understand. They just keep saying no. And then they were talking about Hastings, no. And then they said, okay, Manuel, they kept saying no. And they're like, put him in Lincoln. Those are all adults. He's 16. How's he going to go to Lincoln and be around a bunch of adults? Kathy Hendricks is my son's probation officer. She's awesome. I love her. She said no. She doesn't want him to go there either. He trusts Kathy. He really does. He has a great relationship with her. But she was like, I don't think he belongs there either. But I'm saying there's not many places for him to go. But this can affect him for the future. He wants to go to school. He wants to be successful. He doesn't even know what's going on.
Oh, I'm not disputing your deal at all because there's a lack of mental health services that.
It's pretty messed up.
Yeah, and but it's something that we're trying to address. We're not going to address in the time for that. But I think when I said there's a partnership that goes in that degree, it's Boys Town is a private facility. Unfortunately, we don't have any control over. And I think your discussion with more than welcome.
For her to go so that she does not have to walk away feeling like we can't answer her question.
That's the truth. You can't.
I'm dealing with the problem now. So they're the ones that have to show up. But anything to say, I was like the way he did, trying to get him detained so that I could get him help. When he was destroying myself. Kids can't get arrested, right? They can't get arrested. They just have to come there and have a talk with them, stop breaking the things. If they want to arrest them, nothing can be done.
Well, the Nebraska Family Support Network to help her, like a coach or a parent to help her, since she's awarded the state. What you say now? They have two people here that said they could help probably with her.
Yeah, I was going to say another option. One thing in the police department we have is we have mental health co-responders. We have 2 of them, one in Southwest and one in Northwest. And since you're in Millard, we could connect you with the one in Southwest Precinct. Her name's Franny. She technically works for Lutheran Family Services, but she actually works out of the precinct building, goes out on calls with officers on these kinds of issues and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we had the crisis intervention lady time, and that's when I ended up calling them, and we went to Children's Hospital. I was there all the hospitals, so I was like, I'm going to Children's.
Well, I'll connect you with Franny specifically, and she can kind of be an advocate for you and see what other options there might be available. This is a huge hot button topic. It's not just affecting you. In fact, at our board meeting this morning, that mental health is the #1 issue that is coming up across the county, across the country, that kind of thing. And another, real briefly, I know we want to move on, but we have crisis response for mental health issues, and that's getting better. But I keep hearing at these community forums that we need more crisis response for family and behavioral issues that occur in the family, like the kid that's out of control, like you're talking about, that's breaking things, or the kid that just won't get out of bed to go to school, and parents end up calling the police. Those are situations where really the police shouldn't be involved. And we want to get to a point where we have a crisis response that can deal with those. Now, we have the Nebraska Family Helpline, and they can do some things, and they can connect you with resources, but we want to beef that up a little bit more. That's something that we're working on right now.
Have you talked to Regis?
All of it, been there, been through all that, been through therapy, done it all.
You know, kind of at this point, we're kind of feeling like we have contacted everybody that we need to contact, and it's like we're getting no answers.
He needs PTRA placement, and they need to get him stabilized. That's it. That's all.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark.
Really appreciate
Appreciate
it.
you for letting me know about this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we have time for a couple more.
You felt me. My name is Michaela Jackson. I'm a parent of I'm proud to say, former system-involved youth. My son did just graduate from Boys Town High School by the grace of God. And that's what my advice would be to you, is we don't give up. As parents, we cannot give up, and we have to continue to advocate. I always say that the first thing that should have ever happened to my son, he's amazing, he's 100% perfect to me. He is my son, and I wouldn't change a damn thing about him. But he is a child, he went through some struggles and needed me. But if he were to have been held accountable from the very first time he encountered the justice system, or whether it was marijuana, whether it was stealing the car that he stole, whether it was breaking into houses with, and I don't care where we live, nobody is exempt from this. Nobody. I don't care what color I am, what color my child is, what color your child is, and what color our families are. Our children need us, and we can't give up, and it took every bit of me. My son spent over 100 days in the youth center. Let me tell you though, those 100 days he was in the youth center, I knew my son was safe. Had he not been there, I guarantee this day my son would be dead or incarcerated for a very long time. He went from there, he went on to, they placed him out of state in a community in Canyon City, Colorado, out in the middle of the desert. Desert in Colorado, I called it, because there was nothing but setup and heartache for my son. They kicked him out of there, sent back to the youth center. Back home, I knew my son was safe, and I didn't have to pay, because I am a working parent. I'm a single working parent that works hard, but I was there in Canyon City once a month, sometimes twice a month. I would have washed the streets to get myself to see my son. Back here in Omaha, at the youth center, I got to see my son once a week. I got to let him know Mom hasn't given up. Got sent from there to another program in Springfield, Missouri, where he successfully completed that program. I didn't give up. Myself, my father was there with me. He's my rock. And we were there for him every step of the way. Got sent back to Omaha, completed that program successfully, but wasn't ready to go back into the environment in which caused him the struggle. So that's where I advocated for Boys Town, and fortunately they heard my cry for help. And he was, this time last year, he was on a contract saying you have 30 days to get yourself together, you're gone. And I was going to lose my son forever, so I said, we've made it too far. So what I can tell you as a parent, it's deja vu, I'm feeling, having this conversation. We cannot give up. So I'd like to help you to know, to celebrate, my son just bought his own car. He's working for what costs 40, he's got a full scholarship to Metro Tech to become an auto mechanic. But he has been in shackles and handcuffs and taken away from his mom. But he hasn't really been taken away because he's not anywhere.
Thank you. We're going to go a couple of more minutes. I want to make sure we get
Any
those.
questions as to record geared toward the panel?
Geared toward the panel. Yeah.
No. First of all, I want to thank Ms. Stennis for showing that particular film. Is that about 10 years old?
I think so.
It's close to 10 years old, isn't it?
I'm not that old. So
No, but it's right on time for this particular subject, because it clearly lets you know what the source of the problem is, and it's historical. But that's had to be in these kinds of settings, particularly when you have the nerve to talk about the Douglas County employment situation is indicative of the population. I think there's some data that's going to come out from the DMC to show that that's not correct. The children, since now that you decide on releasing mental health money for the children, does no good when the parents are totally mentally and physically disabled for one reason or another. And there's really nothing that any of the traditional mechanisms can do anything about it, because it would be almost like working yourselves out of jobs. And we know that that's not going to happen. The same reason why we can't find in these rooms people that provide the kinds of services necessary to take care of these kinds of situations, because that's all been removed from our community. So the source is placed in for social and financial conditions, and the outcome will not be altered because it's not financially sound for them to alter it, because the masses of the outside population make money off of that. And I get to respond if he says something crazy.
I don't respond, but I want to make it clear because, I didn't take arrows for a year. And I hear what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but I didn't take arrows for a year to say, like, now we let the money loose. If there was money to be let loose, I would have let money loose a while ago. I mean, I think all of us here at the table have been fighting for that. So, right now, you've been able to create the sense of urgency, and it should have been created a long time ago, but, it's not a lot you can do about the control of the money flow when you got other people and you have to work to get there. Nobody was holding anything back, and I, sympathize, with that parent, but, I just felt like I need to say, this is not something somebody's holding back. I mean, I just took heat for a year trying to reduce a facility down so kids don't sit in a detention center getting worse off. So I just feel like I don't know
The DMC data has been gathered since
I know the DMC data.
DMC data was started by the Department of Justice in 1974. It was increased in 1997. There's been statistics going all the way down from the 70s going into the 80s, mass incarceration, to the number of women that were mass incarcerated in 2000.
Okay,
It's purposely done. We understand why you don't have the money.
Okay, I would just say that 2 years ago, when we as a committee asked to elevate the issue of DMC throughout Douglas County because we felt the problem was not being adequately addressed, every system point responded, and the commissioners, led by Commissioner Borgeson and Commissioner Rogers, committed that if we did not get federal funding, they would find it in their budget to make sure that we had a full-time DMC coordinator. So we're working toward moving the dial on DMC, and that's why your voices tonight are so critical, to let us know what you think are suggestions and strategies, because everything we brought to the county, they have responded accordingly in terms of helping us move this dial. We have come so far in 2 years, that in my entire time being a part of the community. And I will also tell you that as we're making strides in juvenile justice reform, one thing I know that we're making an impact in is DMC. And I believe it's just going to take a few years before we start seeing the numbers, because we have, to me, and I think Mark would agree, other DMC committee members, We have made more strides in addressing DNCRED than we have in any other system reform. And that includes the community.
Very well put. Thank you, Levon.
Thank you very much. I just wanted an opportunity to say, Mr. Klein, that I was very surprised to hear your comment about working with the families. I'm Donna Polk, and I'm the CEO at Nebraska Urban Indian Health. And there have been times when I've sat in my son's courtroom, and I've just been disheartened by the ages and the criminality associated with the young people that are coming through his court, okay? So in the work that we do, we're trying to figure out how can we go upstream to work with these families. The young lady here was very brave to be so revealing about her son. And Deputy Chief Gray, you know, I called you about an elder who was having problems and didn't know what to do. The mental health system is broken, and we get excuses and excuses about why it isn't being fixed. So I'm asking Mr. Klein, if I can possibly call your office, have an appointment to come and talk to you about the work that you're doing. And secondly, I'm very disappointed that there's no data on Native American kids, because we know that they're involved in the system. And I get the same excuse everywhere I go, whether I'm talking about mass transit, gentrification, it's always the numbers are so small. So I'm saying we have people who are new in this community that I don't know how they're being classified, because I know that there are issues with some of our new neighbors. So where's the data on them, and what are we trying to do to help them? So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Looks like we have a youngster we'll listen to.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Jones. I'm with the Juvenile Justice Council, and I kind of have a solution. So with minorities, we know that they come from, traumatic backgrounds or chaotic environments and things like that. So I think we need to take more of a therapeutic approach before trying to just send them to a facility or something like that, because obviously we know these children have, issues, and most of them are mental health. So in order to, kind of take those statistics down, I think we need to really get in before it becomes a major issue.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very well put.
I'd like to piggyback on what this young lady was saying. Mainly when you come down to mental health, if we can do the preventative measure as opposed to waiting until the kid gets up to be a teenager, we need to start when we first see the problem in the home when they are kindergarten. And if we could just work and get the resources, that's what the problem else is, that we don't have enough resources. And some kind of way we're going to have to stop talking about we just don't have the money. We need to make time to get the money because our mind is precious. And we don't want to go down the road where we have all our children and stuff in a mental health capacity, and then we have this imbalance. And I'd like to also give a positive as to what Don King was saying as far as what has happened in his system over there. I remember back in the day, Don and Mary, I'm sure we were all back there then when we didn't have the resources we have now. And we should be kind of appreciative how far we have come, because way back then we had big caseload, and I would have a large caseload and I would be abused because that case worker as well as sometimes I was a probation officer, because of the fact that we didn't have different places to place our children. Now that We know better. We do better. And I just appreciate what you guys are doing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, one of the hearing is going to be, then we're going to, our panel, thank you for coming. Take one or two more questions, the panel has to leave, and then we'll go into the community conversation.
I am a foster parent, and I've been a foster parent for about 16, going on 17 years. And in our home, we try to take in the boys that have the problems, that no one else seems to want to deal with. And so far, we're closing in on about 200 boys that we've had. And we only do teenage boys. Also, I represent Left Band, and that's Nebraska Foster Parent Advocacy Network. And the whole goal is to try to unite foster parents in the state of Nebraska. Because some of the problems that are being talked about tonight, there is some help, we can help each other. The police cannot solve everything. They're not taking kids to jail, and they can't. All right? They're not taking them out of your homes. They're not doing a lot of things, but together, we can solve some of these problems. We can pull upon some of the experience that's in the state of Nebraska. There are people that have been around for a long time, have handled a lot of children, have been in a lot of different situations, and we want to help. Another problem we're having, our agencies are doing things differently. They don't seem to be on the same page, and a lot of them are trying to hide facts that should be given to each and every one of us. In order to help a child, you need to know everything about that child. In order to get kids to do the right thing, we all have to be on the same page. If you put any person in a situation where they're doing one thing here for half the day and another thing totally different the second half of the day, we have problems. So the answer to a lot of these problems is everyone getting on the same page. And also showing a certain amount of discipline to your children. One thing the lady said on the video was right. Everybody's scared of something except the children. Now there's something wrong with that picture. You're raising a generation that has no fear of anything, but yet they're our future. What kind of future can we have if we can't direct them?
Thank you very much. I want to thank the panelists for coming tonight and sharing your information about your departments, your commitment to DMC. The DMC committee looks forward to continuing to work with you as we move this dial and move from conversation to actual action. So again, thank you for coming. Okay.
Is it over?
No, it's not. We're going to go into community conversation. Before that, we're going to do a raffle. We're going to raffle off some gift cards. And so, can I have Luke come forward with a raffle box for the adults? And as we move it, thank you again, Don and Chris and Mary and
You can't make this. You can't expect me to
Okay, let's get your numbers out.
Well, you know how to use. You know what I'm talking about. I know.
Kevin, 259026. Is that you? All right, my new best friend. Okay, let's do that. Here we go. Look like a CBA.
Don't look at me.
And the number is 259032. 259032. Okay, congratulations. So the gift cards are donated by Operation Youth Success. We'll have 2 more drawings for the night is over. Thank you very much. 2 more drawings. we can just break up into some tables, and Mark is passing around paper to allow us to respond, but as a table, could we get your...
But we did drill down on what we've heard from several people here tonight, that it is mental health. It's not just for the youth, but for the whole family, for parents who are themselves traumatized. And, you know, the issue being primarily the barriers to access, and one of them being cost. So when we focused on solution, we talked about, you know, they need to identify early before there's a crisis point and to, you know, intervene properly. And also that, you know, bottom line is we need to have good jobs available for people in this community where they can have, you know, things like health insurance that will allow themselves to access these needed resources. Thank you for letting me participate.
Walk them on.
So for number one, it would be a yes. Number two, we came up with mental health and early childhood pre-K. Number three, families need to understand adolescent brain development. And another part of that is parents can contribute to solutions due to the work hours. I would say for number four, we need more business development. Jobs are good, but if we have people who are getting laid off and parents are working 2 or 3 jobs that add up to being a working poor, when they lose those opportunities, then if they don't have another business opportunity to go to, then they're kind of stuck. So I'm kind of seeing, based on some of the students I work with, that we want them to get more thought about developing businesses, hoping that some of the businesses in the community can invest into that and to help grow some of these kidpreneurs, to maybe encourage their own parents to support them in what they want to do with that. We have some students, we're doing a STEAM program right now, and we're discovering that some students aren't aware of these opportunities, that way they can't communicate that to their parents or whoever their guardian is. If that guardian knew about the love and passion that a student had for a particular occupation, that would take care of number 3 for the family. Because now you're helping with the hope of the entire family, saying, here's this person in our family who might be the one that gets us out of the mental health circle and the poverty circle and the lack of hope circle. So the second part of this, the other solution for the racial and ethnic disparity is to have frank conversations with our people who work with our young people. Meaning that, based on the data that we all know about, we have to have a frank and realistic look at ourselves and say, what are we doing about it? I hesitate because since we're the adults, who do our kids look up to? And if we don't have adults who are old enough to look at themselves and to say, I can do better, meaning I may have to leave one of those jobs, call up grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, to take care of my business as the adult. So our young people can see that we have to have ownership. We can't keep passing the buck and make excuses. If we know somebody is sick and needs mental health, and there's somebody in that family that has the financial resources to do it, got to do it. And so, I'm done. I'm just kind of, a lot of this is coming out because we work a lot with youth during the summer, and sometimes when we don't talk to our kids and we're scared of them, and we don't want to talk about these things with them, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to say, well, if my parents are scared about talking about this, I guess I'm not going to deal with it either, so I'm going to talk to my peer group of 13 and 12-year-olds who we don't really know the answer. We're going to try and solve with that, where the parent, whomever that is, becomes more transparent. Let the tears roll. Let the kids see you cry. Because if they see you cry, oh, now I think you care. And that's okay. And the only reason why I say this, when we do advisement sessions, I have students who will cry in front of me because they can't talk to their own parent or guardian about something, but they feel like they can talk to Mr. Williams about it. That's not really correct, is it? It shouldn't be. But if we have young parents who cannot be transparent with themselves and open up, and say this is a challenge. But I will say this, and I'm going to close, Mark, that, yeah, if we don't do that, it's not going to get better. And the money's going to keep going down the river. And nothing's going to change. I'm done.
And keep in mind, as Bryce said, do send a large percentage of youth that's in the system actually outstate and able to receive some of the services that's required. Okay, we got one left. Who's going to bring us home? Jim, I think you got the vote.
All righty. We were having such good conversations at our table that we didn't get to 3 and 4 in full. But number 1, we absolutely agree with the factors that Dr. McCarr and her research. Number 2, we put health. That also includes mental health, but also food security or lack of food deserts. And also technology, we thought. And yeah, unfortunately we didn't get to 3 and 4, but got to a lot of other good conversation at our table. Thank you.
Thank you, that's what we're here for.
If you want to break it from your responses, which is national, this is a national thing. Most of when you're asking parents for their input, they don't just default to system. That's why it's critical to have parent and community voices at the table. People assume they're going to point fingers at the police or probation, but when given the opportunity for input, they give substantive input such as what you guys have over tonight. So that is why it's really critical, as they say, to move the parents from the kiddie table, and that's where you all come in advocating that you become part of the conversation, the broader conversation about juvenile justice reform, because it can't be about us without us. And so I thank you for your input. But where we're going to go from here, well, first of all, we're going to put all of this together into a report. And you'll be able to get a final report, but in between that final report, you'll be able to go to OperationYouthSuccess.org's website and see a compilation of what you guys have shared with us in Forum 1 and Forum 2. And then at the end of all 4 forums, we're going to put together a full report based on what we've gathered from the community. Now, our next forum, and please save the date, is going to be August 21st. And it's going to focus on social and economic factors that contribute to DMC. We hope you will enjoy we hope that you will join us and that you will share the information with other people. If you've given us your email, then you'll be getting an email invite. And then we also, before you leave, could you please finish up the evaluations on the table. Yes, ma'am.
What was the email again?
OperationYouthSuccess.org.
And then you do these?
We're going to the last 2. Yes. The last 2, last 3.